Because I think you may be right. I don't know if the DPW has this, I know they have a certain number of feet off the roadway. I don't know where it ends. How you doing?
Basically, the range was from Flanders, Washington Street, from the bridge to Route 9. So the only residences there would see it would be Washington Street, and they wouldn't see it.
They had their vest on and everything, walking over and stood down in there.
I'm surprised they didn't take the considered substitute. They were the ones on the
And I reached out to them, but I haven't heard anything back.
say this.
All right.
He said it's fine, it'll make it look nice trees and stuff before.
All right.
So I'm
Time.
interpreting that as, Route 9 looks like shit already, so let's,
Time being 8:03 a.m. on Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. I'd like to open the Westborough Economic Development Committee meeting and welcome everybody to our meeting today. First on the agenda, we have, I think, some meeting minutes from April 5th. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at those? And if so, any comments or motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I don't think we have anybody on the Zoom, but nobody on the Zoom that we need to do a roll call for, right? Okay. All right, we're good. All right. Let's see. First, I guess next on the agenda, we're going to jump right into we have a number of grants to discuss today. This is our final distribution of grants for the quarter, Zach, right? And we have for the fiscal year. I'm sorry, for the fiscal year. And we have how much remaining?
We have right around $8,200. Let me just grab the exact number. Sorry, just one moment, please.
Okay. We can come back to that after the. So why don't we get started with the first grant application being Cha-Cha and Beans. Just a formality here. I'm going to recuse myself from this one, I guess, when it comes time to vote, because I did represent the landlord in this transaction with this group, and I'm excited to have them join us here in Westborough. I think they're going to be very well received. And but with that, I'll let you guys go ahead and give your presentation.
And actually, Todd, if you don't mind, just because this is the first time that we're going to be doing this with the rubric as a guide, I'd like to just, let everyone know a little bit about how I would have envisioned this process going. So staff have reviewed applications last week for completeness, and we gave preliminary scores to the applicants. We did not have the answers to all of the questions that are relevant to the rubric because we have not yet updated the application to reflect the rubric. So I have reached out to all of the applicants, and they've provided me answers to compile a more accurate score for each of them. After we go through the presentations, I'm happy to share the scores with you all in the hope that that will, guide your decision making. But
Great.
As you guys are going through these grant presentations, it might be helpful to try and ask some questions that are related to the rubric or related to the EDC's goals and priorities. And then I do have that number. There is $8,174.22 remaining to expend this fiscal year.
Thank you. Okay, floor is yours. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Here I am, Liana, and my partner Claire. So I am one of the residents of Westborough. I live almost like 14 years here. I have 2 kids, one in Mill Pond and one in Gibbons, and we both trying to do a business, Cha-Cha and Beans.
Okay, my name is Claire, and I live here for 7 years. I have 3 kids. My daughter graduated from high school last year, and I still have 1 high school and one Mill Pond. So we're gonna go introduce our business. Kind of nervous, sorry about that. So many people staring at me. So Cha Cha and Bean actually is basically is an Asian tea house. We sell boba milk tea. Boba milk tea is like originally invented from Taiwan, which is where I came from. I came from Taiwan, and which is like we offer choice of tea, choice of milk, choice of topping, and for food we have Triangle Sushi. So we're gonna have like collaboration with Sakiana as well. I already talked to the landlord, not the landlord, the business owner. And then in the future we want to do like a rice burger, kind of like an Asian kind of snack. And also we have like the dessert, like Hong Kongese egg waffle ice cream. I'm so nervous.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
I'm so Fred.
Fred makes you nervous? Makes a lot of people nervous.
And also, when we're planning this menu, we try to stay away from what we already have here because we want to have more options for ourselves as well. So we try to choose something for like nothing we see here in this area. Also, we have a private room. The private room, we're gonna have like a private use, like maybe for birthday. But mostly, we're gonna have like a tea ceremony to teach the culture thing, and what kind of like equipment to the community, what kind of food come with the right equipment, right pot, right cup, and also because Westborough is such a diverse town, you know, so we feel like if we can offer space for people to share their culture, to share their talent. Sometimes we also want something to learn from, you know. We want to do something in winter too, you know. So that's why we want to have this space and want to keep the private room. So for the first event, I think if we can open in June, we already connect to the like food network. We connect to the champion, just won the Julia Child cooking competition. She is willing to come for our first event, but I hope we can pass everything in June. So this is the introduction of our business. Is there any question?
So for those of you that don't know where they're going, they're taking the, what's the remaining space of the old Sotheby's, right across the street. It's about 1,400 square feet. Can you describe to the EDC a little bit about the build-out that you're going to be doing there?
Because previously it's office space, so it's a big project for us, a two-housewife, you know, to change office space to a tea house with a new kitchen setup.
Yeah.
So we have like so many challenges. We learn so much from the departments, you know. And then we have like a good suggestions, you know. So I feel like this year, I already planned this for 3 years.
Right.
But this is the year I feel like, you know, Todd really helped us, you know, like he's presenting the other side. But the thing is, we get like so many, like very good suggestion to help, like so many people help us to, and I think we need something in the downtown area.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're.
So I feel like it's we need to be encouraged in some way.
Any questions for them?
So how many people do you think you'll seat?
Excuse me?
How many people will it hold? How many people will the,
How many
Will
seats will you have in the establishment?
seats?
Yeah,
I think we will keep it like less than 25.
Yeah.
25?
25.
25.
And then as far as your
can afford
room for your parties, what about it? Will it be 25 also, or
I
will it be?
think according to the architect, he said like we can have like less than 50. But we have 2 full bathroom, and the space he gave us a number.
Yeah.
So, but we don't want to have like too crowded.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. How many employees will you have?
I think we are thinking about, because we are also moms, we want to watch kids games, you know. So we want to have like a
Flexibility.
for full time maybe 3 to 4, you know, but including us. But we need someone to take care, like a management team. So, but mostly because we have so many equipments. So we need to have like the kids over 16 years old to be able to operate. So it focus on high school kids.
And that's for the full time.
That's for the part-time. Yeah.
Perfect.
Go ahead, Rod.
What will the money be used for? Is there
Uh,
a specific thing?
Well, that's a lot.
like, because we spend a lot of money on this project.
And this is new, right?
Yeah, probably like 80,000 for total for spending. But for the construction, it's already like 60,000 so far because we added up. We want to, and also we want to have like the best, like when we are setting up the ice machine, they were telling me nobody's have the filter for the ice machine, but we want the whole water to filter.
Yeah.
Like this because our kids also use it. So he said like nobody do that, but we still want to do that.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter how much money we get from the EDC, but this is like something we want to do.
Yeah. Thinking like we have kids here, it's like we want to give the best for the kids too.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Great job with your presentation.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a EDC grant application for Corporate Communications, Inc. Julie Nickerson? Is Julie available? Not online?
I can try emailing Julie quick to see if she's planning to join remotely or in person today.
Okay. All right. So we'll jump on to the next one, which is the EDC grant application for Mayori.
And Ramesh, I believe, is joining remotely. So.
Great. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Ramesh Changireddy, and we're located in the Westborough shopping center. We are celebrating currently 10 years of Indian cuisine. So we offer a little bit of both the mayonnaise. So we offer around 140 items from all over India. And so we recently upgraded to full liquor license, trying to offer our customers with a full liquor. And we're trying to build a dry bar in the existing dining area. So we try to use the EDC to use some of the funds to build the construction effort. So
All right. What is the total cost of the bar that you're going to be installing?
it will be like 25,000 to 30,000,
25 to 30, okay.
including all the equipment and the plan to have 1 or 2 full-time employees.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We're also planning to hire 1 or 2 full-time employees.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any questions?
Quick question.
Go ahead, Holly.
Are you applying for any other grants with other organizations at all, any other funding?
Nothing as of yet. This is the first time we are applying the grant.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question, Mark?
Yes, you have the best Indian buffet I've ever been to. When do you plan on reopening it?
I guess he doesn't want to.
So what is that? I mean, I missed the last part of it.
Oh, he was asking about, he said that you have the best Indian buffet that he's ever been to, and he was wondering when you plan to reopen it.
Oh, okay, sorry. I heard the fascinating, but so we're looking forward to get it open pretty soon. Just waiting for all the everything is cleared out, so that way we can create a safe environment for everybody, so everyone can feel more comfortable to get in the buffet.
That's, well, it's quite an accolade coming from this man, because he knows all the lunch places in town here, so.
I've worked here for 30 years.
All right, great. Any other questions? All right. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Vivacity Nutrition. Madison Smith.
So Madison emailed me this morning, letting me know that she has a staff member who's out sick today, and so she has to work this morning, and so she won't be able to join. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the application, considering obviously if I can't answer it, then, it is what it is, but I can also provide a quick overview.
Yeah, why
if
don't
you'd
you do
all
a
like.
quick overview if you don't mind, Zach?
Yeah, so Madison owns a business called Vivacity Nutrition, which is located at 5 Summer Street here in Westborough, right in our downtown area. They are kind of a health wellness business that provides like smoothies, shakes, teas to the general public. Her business opened, I believe, in September or October of 2021. She had been trying to open sooner, but she ran into some issues with her contractor, and so that delayed the opening a little bit. She's applying for a rental assistance grant as a new business, which I believe she would still qualify as because she's within the last year she's opened in town. Her lease is for 2 years with an opportunity to extend for another 2 years, and I think that kind of covers a lot of the bases. Does anyone have any questions about her application or about the business?
Is this the first time they've come for a grant, or is this a reapply?
This is the first time they've come for
I
a
couldn't
grant.
remember
When
if
they had
they had-
originally opened, they'd expressed interest in the grant program, but when they sent me their application, I noticed that their lease was not longer than 3 years, which at the time, the board was considering kind of a hard, I guess, a hard rule to qualify for the grant program.
Yeah.
Since we have implemented the rubric, which gives people points for 2+ years on their lease, we seem to have relaxed that rule a bit, and so she asked me if she could apply, and I encouraged her to do so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
As a regular there, I can attest that their drinks are very good.
Some of them are also quite caffeinated.
They did a nice job with that space.
Okay. If no other questions, we'll move on to the next grant application, which is Norse Farm. Tim and Catherine Norse.
Hi there, everyone. Greetings from Logan Airport.
And I believe you
Catherine-
guys have a presentation.
Catherine, do you want to take it forward or shall I?
Well, I don't know where you are in security, but,
I'm through.
okay. You can do it if you want.
Catherine, Tim, do you
You're-
want me to pull up the presentation?
If you could. I'm going to have Zach pull up the presentation, Tim, and I can just take questions if you have to get on the flight.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.
So, first of all, I just want to start by thanking the EDC for hosting the award session last week. We were privileged to be awarded the Hall of Fame award, and just thanks to all the support in putting together the video and the kind words. And so today, what we're doing is we are basically continuing our application from last quarter. We had applied for $5,000 for 2 challenges that have been facing Nurse Farm. And we were thankful to receive $1,000, but we're also encouraged to reapply for additional funding. And so today I have the same presentation beforehand, and I think if we can just run through slowly to the challenge slide, just because I know that all the EDC committee was there last time, so we don't need to go through it in great detail. I think you're all familiar with Nurse Farm and kind of our offerings. And so last time we had applied for 2 different challenges. One was a lack of covered space in terms of inclement weather is common in Westborough and Massachusetts. And that's been a challenge for our business in terms of offering services throughout the season. Go to the next slide, Zach, please. We had applied for a tent. One more slide, please. And one more. And I'm happy to say that with once we received approval from the EDC for the tent, we went ahead with a purchase of it. We in fact purchased a 20 by 40 tent, which you can see to the right of the Veg Out food truck. And we're excited to have that ready to go for our Unplugged event, which we're hosting in conjunction with Westborough Connects this weekend on Saturday, 12 to 4. Hope to see you all there.
We just
So we
installed
did
this
move ahead
yesterday.
with part of the application already. If I move to the second challenge is parking. As you may know, if you've been at the farm, there's kind of a gravel spot in front. There's a grassy knoll to the left where there is overflow parking, but it is disorganized. It's not very accessible. It's not flat. And so we have applied for an additional amount of funding, and that's our second challenge we hope to get EDC funding for, to really improve that grassy lot. One more slide, please, Zach. And so we are looking to get earth moving equipment to level it, and then in particular put in parking blocks to show where people can go. That will include a handicapped accessible spot to ensure that everyone is able to access the farm and its services. Next slide, please. So you can see it there. There's that box there where we're hoping to get the additional support. And one more, I think that's about it. In terms of the budget, original application was for $6,500. In fact, with the 20 by 40 tent and inflation to some degree, the total costs are now $8,500. And so we are looking for additional support from EDC to take forth additional payment for the tent as well as for this parking issue. And maybe just to speak to the rubric, I appreciate that you put together the rubric. That's great, very helpful in terms of for you all to assess the validity of the different grants. I do want to note that while this project will not create any new jobs, it will sustain the roughly 15 seasonal and full-time jobs that are at the farm, really continuing to drive the community to take advantage of the fresh fruit and vegetables, the prepared foods from Veg Out, as well as the open space, which is critical to Westborough's future. And with that, thank you. Catherine, I'm not sure if I missed anything. If you'd like to add anything.
Just again, our thanks for last Friday as well. It's been wonderful to be able to support the community and to feel that support back. So we really appreciate the opportunity to serve you delicious and nutritious food. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Does anyone have any questions?
Well done.
Yeah.
Thanks for the use of your laptop.
No worries.
All right, thank you.
Safe travels.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Next on the agenda, the last grant application, Simply So Hope. Kimberly Tynan.
Good morning. My name is Kim Tynan. I am the maker and creator of Simply Soap. I am an existing business in Westborough, but I've predominantly had an online presence. So for the past 13 years, and just recently, as of March 1st, moved into a downtown brick and mortar location. You might remember me from the last quarter. I did present some request, for some support with construction, and appreciate the grant of $1,000. I'm revisiting the committee here today to request $5,000 to help support some major renovations to the location at 69 Milk Street, which is in the old mill building. That location previously was a dentist office. I actually sent some pictures to you, Zach. I don't know if it's possible for you to pull them up, or
Let me see what I
if not, that's okay. So the space needed some pretty significant renovations. There wasn't running water, there wasn't a sink. We needed to add a lot of equipment. And so what I'm requesting today is support with sink installation, cabinets, refrigerator, dishwasher, microwave, various merchandising components, furniture, fixtures, and some sign and facade improvements. Last month with the grant I was awarded, I used those monies to support a piece of machinery that's a bath bomb machine. I right now am the sole employee, although I look forward to being able to hire some additional employees soon. I very much need some assistance. I'm in the process of working with Verizon to get my internet situated, so that's another challenge. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
I think you covered a lot there. Any questions?
So just remind me, will it have a retail presence as well?
It does.
Okay.
So it is a studio space as well as a retail space. And I'm also providing classes in the evenings, so all about making soap, and hope to expand that into candle making, etc.
Which space is it? Is it the old dentist
It's
space?
the one,
there?
the one right in the front with the
Yeah.
bay window, the door
Yeah,
right
nice.
there.
Yeah, that's great. Good for
Yeah.
you. That's
It's a
excellent.
gorgeous space.
Yeah.
We've
Thank
done a
you.
lot with it. It looks great.
Thanks.
No other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now, I'm sorry, Zach, any response from Julie Nickerson?
I got an out-of-office notice from Julie, so I think it's fair to assume that we won't be expecting her this morning.
Okay.
There was another colleague from corporate communications who'd been copied on a few emails. I emailed him to see if he was joining or if anyone else, but I think at this point it's probably fair to move forward.
Yep, okay. All right, so let's move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the discussion of the EDC grants. And Zach, do you want to bring us up to speed on the discussions that the group had?
Yep,
and
I'm happy to
working
share.
group?
So the way that we assessed the applications was we looked at them, took what we knew about the building, the business, the location, the background, as well as the questions that the businesses so kindly provided me answers to score the applicants based on the rubric. For Cha-Cha and Beans, we gave them a 75 out of 115. For corporate communications, we gave them a 35 out of 115. For Mayuri, we gave them a 70 out of 115. For Vivacity Nutrition, we gave them a 60 out of 115. And then for Nurse Farm, we gave them a 40 out of 115. And then for Simply So Hope, we gave them a 55 out of 115. Before we get into the discussions here, I'd just like to remind the board that the rubric is a guide, and you all are at liberty to use that guide however you may choose when informing your decision making here. I think it's important to remember why the scores were tabulated this way. Because the rubric weights certain things heavier than others. And so it is possible that there are really good projects that might score lower on the rubric, but that just might not be in downtown or filling a vacancy or creating jobs. And likewise, there could be projects that score really high that aren't as aligned with the EDC's goals and priorities as something that scores lower. So although we did give them these scores, and you are free to use that as a guide in your decision making, you're also at liberty to make whatever decisions that you would like to make today.
Could you share again the amounts that each group is
Yep.
looking for?
The amounts that each group was looking for. Cha-Cha and Beans was seeking 5,000. Corporate Communications was seeking 5,000. Mayuri was seeking 5,000. Vivacity Nutrition was seeking 5,000. Nurse Farm was seeking 4,000, and Simply Soap was seeking 5,000. And another thing to consider as well is, we have 2 reapplicants, so
Right.
a decision for the board is whether to fund something new or to, because the reapplicants reapplied, because it was a very competitive cycle last round, maybe you could fund one of the reapplicants at closer to what their original full request was.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but given the fact that corporate communications isn't here today, these other people took time out of their day to be here and present to us. We had one, Tim Nurse, who called in from Logan, made time for it. So I'm not so inclined to give a grant to corporate communications based on the lack of anyone being here today and presenting.
I would agree, and I would suggest that they move their application to the next period.
Your interest, I agree.
Okay. So what do the people think about about the others? I think,
I think a good place to start this conversation as well is to think about how many applications you would like to fund. And, maybe then from there, you can look at the rubric and say, hey, we want to fund 2 or 3 applications, so we'll take, the top 2 and then, or the top 3 or however, you want to do that.
And we have just under 8174, right? You said 8,174, so we could.
And 22 cents, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. So call it 8,000 to round it out.
So you might be able to fund one application at its full request, another application at 3,000 and change, or you could do one at 5,000 and then another at 2 and then another at the balance. I think part of the reason why we implemented the rubric was to try and start funding more applications to their full request. So I think it would be a good idea to at least fund one at the full 5,000.
any comments on that? Any feelings on that?
Excuse me? This is Robert Dubinsky from Corporate Communications.
Oh.
Thank you for joining. I just got your email that you might not be able to join, so I really appreciate you taking the time, especially out of the country, to join us this morning. Todd, do you want to...
We'll let them talk.
Yeah, I think we should let him present if he's out of the country and calling in. Let's, Robert, why don't you go ahead and present your grant application to us, please?
Yes, thank you. So we've been a long-time business in Westborough, probably over 36 years. And recently signed a lease about 5 years ago, 6 years ago at 205 Flanders Road. And I think many of you know that that property was vacant for years and years because some of it's past. So the front of the building has an entrance on the right-hand side, and we chose to kind of enhance that entrance with a sidewalk and some shrubbery, not only to present the building better to our clients, but then also folks that drive by Flanders Road. The name of the past business there escapes me, but I want to say it's a Marisense. It was the compounding company. And when we moved into the building, it was probably vacant for 3-4 years. So besides those improvements and other improvements, we were very excited about the opportunity for the grant. And actually our work far exceeded the $5,000 that we're requesting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So how many employees do you have, Robert?
Well, at that facility, we have probably 25 employees, but at any given time, because of the work that we do in Boston in the convention and event business, recognizing that business was hit very hard during the COVID,
Yeah.
it's in excess of 100.
Okay. Any questions for Robert?
What exactly, I guess, I'm not certain what corporate communication does for, I apologize for that, but what they actually do for, what the work is, I guess, is my question. Sorry to start from a...
No, that's totally fine. That's probably that's where I should have started, not assuming everybody knew. But we are an event and trade show management company. So when corporations or associations want to produce an event, we help design the exhibit, we subcontract the construction, we coordinate all the logistics to ship the exhibit, arrange for setup, electricity, plumbing sometimes. And we do that not only primarily in Boston, New England, but we're also a qualified or certified vendor for the DCU Center. At the Boston Convention Center during COVID, we helped assemble 1,000 treatment rooms, which were in that facility for probably 4 months, mothballed, and then we were instrumental in taking it all out, making room for the convention business, which is now doing well.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions for Robert? Okay, thank you, Robert, for calling in. We appreciate it, and appreciate your time.
Oh, no, I appreciate the consideration. I did hear the tail end of your presentation and the fact that I wasn't able to zoom in quickly from Barcelona, for we're here at another medical convention this week assisting a company named Care Access. So thank you.
Well, enjoy Barcelona.
A little bit of work involved, but thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's
All
go.
right, guys, thanks.
Let's get back to our discussion of the EDC grant awards. So here we are, we have $8,174.22 remaining. This is the final grant awards we'll be presenting for this fiscal year. We have 6 applicants, all applying for $5,000 with the exception of Nurse Farm, which is applying for $4,000. We have the rubrics that we developed that shows, I guess, Cha-Cha and Beans as the highest point with 75 out of 115. Mayori with 70 out of 115 would be next, and then Vivacity with 60, and so on. I guess the question, as Zach brought up, do we want to allocate funds to just the top 2? Do we want to go back to what we did before and break it out and give a little bit to each? How do people feel about this? Any comments?
I think allocating the top 2 would be my preference, but, I think.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other feelings on this?
I might, taking a look at some of these, I might drop like maybe 1 or 2 and then allocate to the rest. There are some that benefit the town more than others, town residents, town employees.
Yeah.
And, providing a service to the, town like Nurse Farms.
Yeah.
So,
I do think the repeat applicants, did I cut you off, Mark?
No,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I do think the repeat applicants obviously need the money or they wouldn't be here again.
Right.
And I think some weight should be given to that as well.
I would agree with that also, just because they didn't have the opportunity to perhaps get a full amount if they had been evaluated earlier.
Yeah. And I think this might be one of the
I think we're in a transition stage.
exactly. Maybe in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to use the rubrics starting at the beginning of the next fiscal calendar, which would have been next quarter. It's not to say we have to use it, but it's something we put in place that I think to help us better formulate ways to allocate these funds.
And looking back over the time, some of these applicants are much higher than some of the people that we've already allocated money to in the past.
Right,
like
exactly. So
vacant downtown office,
Right.
storefront spaces.
Right.
That's probably why they have 75, right?
Yeah. Yeah, which is, and again, I think it's important we put that rubrics together, and I think it's something that I'd like to use. I think that, to your point, though, people that were here last quarter that we allocated $2,000 to, they may have scored higher, they may have scored lower based on the rubrics, and we didn't have that in place then. So, personally, go ahead, Fred.
I would agree with Scott that the point of the rubrics was to award a higher amount to the higher scoring rubrics. So I would agree that you just give $5,000 to the first applicant and the balance to the second. That would be, that's the way I'd look at it. If you're going to truly use the matrix as it was designed and as discussed by this committee.
I think you're right. I think if the board decides that we want to use the rubrics for this go-around, then I think we should stick to that and do it. If we decide we want to put it off and, take the totals for what they're worth and really start to apply it next quarter, then we can do that. There's nothing that says we have to use the rubrics. I think this.
Yeah, I would add then, if we're going to be strict with the rubric, then I guess in the future, we don't need to ask folks to spend the time to come here.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think, so going forward, I think that would make some sense. I think maybe today is a transition meeting to the rubric. So I wouldn't disagree with using that thought process going forward. I think maybe a modified approach today makes sense, because we did ask all these people to make a commitment to be here today. And everybody made pretty compelling presentations. So, you know, I do think you know, I'm not interested in, you know, peanut buttering the money across everybody today, but, you know, I think maybe going to just the top two today is a little too harsh of a transition.
And one of the things too is I think seeing the rubrics used a couple of times, maybe it can be modified. For example, when I look at Maori, it's a great restaurant. They've been here, they're established, they're not in town, and they have 70. So I would look at that just gut saying, geez, why did they score so high? And why, you know, Simply Soho or Nurse Farms, which meet a lot of the, you know, benefits to the community, improving the downtown, why are they so low compared to Maori would be? So we probably have an imperfect rubrics right now, right?
Well,
Yeah.
if I may,
Yes?
you're not going to be able to tailor the rubrics to fit every business. That's why the committee had a discussion on this and actually weighed in on how they wanted to weigh this. I think it would be remiss of the committee to not use it for half a year or a year before they made a decision to change it. I think you're just going to have to see how it pans out over time. You know, if you start screwing around with it every time you get a business that comes forward in front of the committee, you'll be here forever.
Yeah, but it's not every time, Fred. This is kind of the first time.
Right, but again,
We expect to have some, you know, modifications at the beginning, then later, you know, a year from now, we'll probably be set. That's,
I think the big part of it is the challenges the business faces coming to Westborough, and the purpose of the EDC is to help those businesses that are challenged to come to Westborough, to encourage those businesses, you know, along with the business to stay. But
I would think the other thing the committee has to, if I may,
Yes.
the other thing the committee has to weigh in is that the reapplications, the thought was that you'd have actual funds at the end and that was part of this. So if you hadn't allocated most of the money, it would make sense to then give it back to companies that already reapplied.
Right.
In this case, at the end of the year, you didn't have enough for 2 applications, 3 applications, let alone reapplications. To no fault of the applications, you know, not trying to diminish that, but you don't have enough money to distribute because the grant has been so successful this past year. Kind of is what it is, but I would think in the future, the committee has to really think about if it comes to the last quarter, if you don't have enough over $10,000, do you really take reapplications at that point? I mean, those are tough decisions. We don't want to deny anybody anything, obviously. But anyway.
But at the same time, if we had, taking somebody like Nurse Farm, for example, if we didn't have as many applicants last quarter, we may have granted them more money for their project. So, you know, should they be penalized now that we have some money here and additional applicants that, you know, came in after they had applied? Should those people, should those applicants get more money than what they had applied for? Or what they had received, I should say. That's the question.
Yeah. So I have a thought and proposal. I would say, I agree. I think that we're still kind of coming to the end of like this cycle, and I think it would be fair and make sense to me anyway to just to consider the numbers, but also moving forward the next fiscal year, really sticking to it. I also agree with Fred. I think we have to let it settle in for a good 6 months to a year, a couple of cycles before we make any changes. I think that we sat and spent a lot of time on the rubric, but I would just propose, because if you are going down a little bit with the rubric and just process of elimination, I would say the corporate and Vivacity, because it's a rental assistance, and I don't know how much that's going to actually improve the existing space, but my proposal would be to fund like $3,000 to Cha-Cha, and then go ahead and revisit Nurse, Soho, and maybe Maori. I do think it's important with Nurse Farm and Soho because, again, they didn't get what they had asked for the first time around, and I think they've come and they're definitely committed to, and bringing those businesses forward. I think that's really important. So I would like to recognize that.
So are you making a motion or a proposal?
Yeah, I make a motion to fund, I don't know, 2,500 to Cha-Cha, and then splitting up the rest between Maori, Sohope, and Nurse. Did I miss anybody?
I'll second that motion.
You're talking equally, Ally?
Yeah, the remaining, can't do the math in my head, but the remaining, after the 2,500, is equally splitting up among the three.
So that would be,
Yeah, somebody do that math.
About 1,500, give or take,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more. It's not an even number, it's some kind of odd number.
You can do some rounding.
What was the total amount still left in the grant fund there?
$8,174.22.
We just need more money.
Yeah, somebody might get an extra penny or something.
okay, so we had a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I had slightly different amounts in mind, but so close to what I was thinking, I would agree. I think this hybrid amount I do agree that Cha-Cha should get the most. I think for all the reasons we've talked about, it's very deserving, and the others are deserving as well, and splitting it amongst them makes sense to me.
Okay, so if my calculations are correct, it'd be 2,500 to Cha-Cha and Bean, and then 1,891.41 to Maori,
Correct.
Nurse Farm, and Simply Sohope.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussions? Comments? All right, all those in favor? Okay, there you have it.
You got Christie on the phone, I think.
Oh, Christie? Christie Williams?
I don't know if we lost
Maybe
her.
not. Okay,
I'm here.
all right.
There she is.
All right, would you mind telling us your vote on this?
I vote in favor.
Okay,
Thanks.
there we go. Thank you very much. All right, great. Thank you all very much for coming in and great presentations. Even though you were nervous, you did an awesome job. I didn't think you were nervous at all.
And I would the only comment I would make, I think the presentations are important, even if the rubrics is different. I think it's a good opportunity for people to present their business publicly, and I appreciate everybody for coming.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we're actually right on time, is the discussion of the Complete Neighborhoods Partnership Grant. Zach?
Great, so I'm happy to introduce this, and then Fred and Christy, if you're still on, chime in where I might get things wrong. But a couple of weeks ago, the town of Westborough submitted an application to the Complete Neighborhoods Partnership Initiative, which is a grant program that could secure planning assistance for a specific part of the town. We've identified the downtown area as an area of need for housing and, I guess, mobility and walkability and multimodal transportation planning. So we submitted that application, and this application came out of a working group that I believe both Jim, Fred, Christy, and Mark Silverberg from the planning board sit on. They identified this grant program as an attractive opportunity for the town, and then staff put together this application, which we submitted a couple weeks ago. The advantages are that, I think it has been well documented in the town's planning documents, such as the master plan, that encouraging housing and encouraging walkability and vibrancy in our downtown area is a priority. And so this grant program allows us, or could give us, the opportunity to fund some more planning studies to that end, to help us figure out what exactly we need to do in order to create opportunities for housing downtown and to create opportunities for walkability and multimodal transportation. The reason why we're here before the board today is to ask for a letter of recommendation from the board. I've prepared one in advance for Todd, and I'm happy to read it if you'd like. But generally, we think that this is aligned with a lot of the goals that the EDC advocates and stands for, and so it would be great if the EDC could support this application on behalf of the community. Fred, Christy, or Jim, is there anything you'd like to add?
So the grant is intended to be for studies for the downtown. And it can include things like Zach talked about mobility, but it can also include design. And it's hoped that there would be a plan that would talk about the redevelopment of the downtown in cooperation with the master plan. So looking at vacant buildings is also a possibility.
Yeah, if I may, it also aligns with the LRP, some of the initiatives with that. So it takes in a conglomeration of different things, as Jim pointed out, the master plan, that it's kind of a consolidation of all that, if you will.
Yeah, one of our LRP projects that's been designated for a later phase of implementation is actually a demonstration project around walkability and vibrancy, and then doing actually like a longer range study to assess opportunities to improve walkability and vibrancy in our downtown area. So, in the best case scenario, if we win this grant program, then we might be able to check off part of that project through some of the dollars that we get from the Community Neighborhoods Partnership.
And this also is not a small grant. This is $150,000.
Great. Great.
It's over some time period, too. I think there's some amount that comes in. It's not just a one-time thing.
Okay, sounds like this is something we should be in support of. Can anyone want to make a motion that we?
Yeah, I would just add the select board
Okay.
voted this at their last meeting, full support.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that the committee approve a recommendation letter on this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Fred.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? Christie? All right. Thank you. Right now.
Since she wrote it, I think she'd want you to.
Can you pass that down to Zach, please? Thank you. All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the
Thank you.
outdoor customer area policy.
Great. So this is an outgrowth of one of our LRP projects. Specifically, one of the projects that we designated for phase 1 implementation is leveraging the LRP's outdoor dining retail toolkit to create an outdoor dining and retail policy for our downtown area. As some of you may know, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, outdoor dining became immensely popular with some of our restaurants. The town of Westborough and staff acted very swiftly to create a interim policy and an expedited policy to permit outdoor dining areas in off-street parking spaces that waived the full site plan requirement, and so these businesses didn't have to go to the planning board, and staff could approve the application, and the select board would issue their approval as well. That policy did not cover or really address any of the businesses where there is no off-street private parking spaces, specifically like those businesses in our downtown area. Additionally, there have been a number of businesses that have tried to put up some sort of outdoor customer area, be it tables or be it like a table and chair or Adirondack chairs or something like that, and you can actually see a handful of those in our downtown area right now. The policy that is in your packet is actually not the latest version of that policy. There are still some changes to be made. Specifically, I need to adjust the insurance liability requirements so that it matches the town's requirements elsewhere. I'm still trying to track down what those numbers actually need to be. But the policy would allow for a business downtown to create an outdoor customer area for either dining or retail in specific parts of the sidewalk or on on-street parking spaces. If the applicant seeks to use on-street parking spaces for some kind of outdoor customer area, they will need to the select board will need to have an informal hearing for any neighbors or community members to express their support or lack thereof for such a setup. Outdoor customer areas on the sidewalk that don't have public parking impacts do not have such a requirement. And what we did to create this policy is we looked at similar policies in similar communities such as Brookline, Hudson, Arlington, Needham, and what they were requiring for their outdoor customer areas. And we tried to create a best of both worlds type policy. Like I said, the second to last draft is currently in the Dropbox, and so I uploaded it late last night, so I don't know if you've had the chance to review it yet. But if you have any questions or concerns, you can please ask me. But again, we're here seeking a letter of support for the outdoor customer area policy, which will be addressed to the select board, who ultimately have the authority to adopt it or not.
I think it's exactly what we need for downtown, and I think it helps to bring vitality downtown and, pedestrian traffic, and I think I'm in full support of it, so. Now, how other members feel?
The policy has also been vetted by numerous staff of various departments, including planning, building, fire, police, and DPW. And so we've also had more than one meeting on this policy. It's been in progress really since we've completed the LRP in October. And I feel that we have a pretty comprehensive and airtight policy. Obviously, there will be some things that we learn along the way. But I think with the policy that's proposed and enclosed in your packet, we're in a pretty good spot to start our downtown outdoor dining adventure.
I'd like to add to what Zach said. We have had numerous staff meetings about this. And it's important that we have a policy because there are many different restaurants that would like to propose outdoor seating as well as retail establishments. And it's important that the town be able to pass on or promulgate regulations and policies so that they understand what the expectation is if they're going to do business outside. And I think this is a uniform policy that will be fair to all that want to take advantage of it. It's needed for us to be able to do business.
Well said,
I
Jim.
agree. Were there businesses in town brought into these meetings at all, or was it all city?
It was all staff in the
employees.
actual policy development meetings, although, I did informally reach out to a handful of our restaurants who in the past had expressed interest in outdoor dining to get a sense of, what their needs are and,
Right,
and
compared
what
to the
they...
town's needs and a business's needs are going to be obviously coming usually from what I find is two different directions, usually.
That's a good point.
Just to make sure they're involved, because it's not, I know a lot of the small businesses in town, and they are very unclear on this, and I think a clear ruling would be great, and make sure that everyone knows what ground they're standing on when they're starting and when they're coming into the place. That's incredibly important.
Well, so Mark, to your point, if I may, I'm sorry, to your point, Mark, that as Zach had pointed out, is one of the issues, the LRP, so the general public did have input to this.
Oh, yeah. I knew that, so I just wanted to make sure in the process,
Yeah.
I always feel like it's important to, they
Yeah,
don't feel
and
like something's
it's
being put on.
because, sorry, again, didn't mean to interrupt you. It's because restaurants have come in and said, well, what can we do?
Yeah.
And every time a restaurant comes in and says, what can we do? They tell us what they would like to do.
Yes.
So
I get that.
we have a sense of what would work for them and what we are restricted to allow because of safe clearance on the sidewalks, access to storefront entrances. So it's been back and forth. We're aware of what the stores need.
Okay, good, that's all. I want to make sure they get a voice in it, that's all. Thank you, guys. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I'm in support of, outdoor dining. The one thing, and I think it's important, and Zach mentioned, is that the neighbors should be able to weigh in.
Right.
Because I use a business in Wellesley, and the pizza place next door, Wellesley blocked off parking with Jersey barriers. So much of the time, that wasn't being used, but the place I get my hair cut, people couldn't park in front of her place. And I'm thinking, a lot of businesses along there, people come in, they buy something, they leave, and if there's a Jersey barrier, I don't know how permanent, if it's just something they block the sidewalk off for the evening, or is it a permanent thing like Wellesley had that really interferes with the neighbors, and if the neighbors can weigh in on it.
It sounded like they would have to have an informal hearing with the select board.
Yes.
That's
Do something
correct.
like that,
Yeah.
so.
So neighbors would have the opportunity to weigh in. Additionally, if the outdoor customer area extends beyond the applicant's premises in any way, so if it does extend in front of a neighbor's storefront or use parking spaces in front of a neighbor's business, the neighbor actually needs to provide a letter of support. So this was something that we saw, I think, specifically in Brookline's outdoor customer area policy, that if there's true interference with the neighbor's business or the public way in front of that business, The neighbor, it's not, the neighbor literally needs to support the applicant's application.
Well, that's good, because the example that I brought up, they took the parking away from another business, you know.
That's possible, but if you read the policy, it's pretty robust. And ultimately, if the select board accepts it, they could finesse it however they want for each individual applicant, so.
Well, that's good. Go ahead, Rod.
I fully support it. The only thing I wonder about is the barricades. I've seen nice barricades and not so nice barricades, and I don't know what sort of thing, what we could do to help standardize them or help support the businesses as they do them, but that would be the only comment I would have.
So, actually, subject to the town of Westborough's zoning bylaw, anything outdoors in our downtown area is subject to design review by the design review board. And so umbrellas, barriers, tables, chairs will all go through the normal process with the design review board, which I think Rod might assuage some of that concern. The policy doesn't outline specific design guidelines for what a barrier needs to look like visually, but it would be my hope that the design review board, in its role of protecting, the, I guess, visual integrity of our downtown area and of, really more areas in town as well, will be able to weigh in on that and have some authority over that.
Might be helpful to have some suggestions on what they might like to see. And I wouldn't want to make it overly stringent. I just think some input could be good.
Yeah, I think the only concern is if people are taking over parking spaces, if they're actually basically on the street, the barriers need to be pretty robust. So,
In this example in Wellesley, they put concrete Jersey barriers.
Yeah.
It was on Route 16, so it's a pretty busy street, too.
yeah.
Go ahead, Ollie.
I just wanted to comment that I think the section in here that says it can't abut the rotary is really important, because when you have this conversation just in the community with people, those are the two camps that at least I'm hearing a lot of, like, well, what's going to happen? The rotary's already a mess. We can't do that. It's going to create a huge problem. But because that's been addressed, and I think that also we've got kind of buy-in from the important town committees and things, I think I fully support it. So I want to make that comment.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion, or we submit a letter to support this?
I think that was made. Wasn't the motion made?
Did somebody make the motion?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I
okay.
think so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Second? Second, Rod. Thank you. All in favor? Great, thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is the discussion on the Conservation Commission fee schedule. Sherry?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sherry Wittes. I serve the town as the Conservation Director, for those of you who don't know me.
Sherry, could you just...
Do I need the mics?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Does that work? Hold on.
I think you might even need to project a little more than that.
It's my downfall. I'm not yelling at my kids. It doesn't come out. Okay, so I presented to the Conservation Commission several months ago the prospect of adding fees to our permits. In the course of that discussion with them, they asked that I come before all of you to get some feedback on how that would be perceived. They're concerned that if we add fees, that we may look like we're not pro-construction or building in town, and that's not the case. The whole point for bringing fees forward is to have more of a user fee to try to recoup some of the time and energy that my department puts out. At the moment, any permit could be anywhere from 6 hours to about 50 hours for my department before the permit's issued, and none of that is accounted for other than the residents' taxes and whatnot. And that doesn't take into account after, when the building project is underway and there's site inspections, or if there's an emergency or something goes wrong and we have to run out and deal with that. So we did a research of all the other comparable towns that were in the area. Only one of them doesn't have fees right now for conservation. They don't have a bylaw, so that might be why they don't have fees, but they're shooting for town meeting to get another one. The other towns range anywhere from $5 or $25 for a fee, up to $1,500 for a fee. So I kind of picked middle of the road and what I thought was fair for a recommendation. With regard to conservation permits, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with them, but there is a larger permit called a notice of intent, and that can range from any project you want to do, from a small pool in the backyard to a whole subdivision. So it really has a scale. With that, the state has a scale of how they do fees. I mimicked that scale so that a homeowner wouldn't pay the same as a subdivision. I felt that was a fair sliding scale. With regard to closing out a permit or extensions or any other smaller administrative task, I just picked a middle-of-the-road lower permit, $25, $100, something, not even 100, I think I went with 50 for extensions. No, so for amendments was 50, so if you wanted to change your order and add something to it would be $50. Anything else was $25 or actually, or not or less, just $25. So the commission discussed this. They were not opposed to my recommendations. They may look at them more. We haven't fully had that discussion, but they first wanted to come before all of you and just really get some feedback and your opinion on this. Questions?
Any questions? Rod?
I guess the question, I don't know if you had the opportunity, but what's, if you took out what your workload is right now or the past couple of years, what sort of fees do you think this would generate in total?
So ranging from notice of intents, I do about 30 a year for permits for that. Requests for area delineation areas, which are a smaller permit, I'll do anywhere from 10 to 15 of those a year. And then with regard to amendments, I maybe see one a year if, and then certificate of compliances, I could get anywhere from 20 to 5 a year. It depends on when people sell their houses, they tend to be like, oh, I have an open order of conditions, let's close that out. And we recommended $25 just for the time it takes for me to review it, present it to the commission at a meeting, and write the permit physically. So on average, maybe 40 permits a year altogether.
What sort of fee do you think that would generate?
Oh, what sort of fee? That's hard to tell you because it depends on what would be brought forward. So like if we're talking about a bigger project like what's going on at 2925 Research Drive, that would be closer to $1,000 for a fee. Someone who wants to put a pool in their backyard, it's going to be half of 75, whatever that is, 50 something. So it depends on what gets brought forward. I see a lot of pools now because everyone's home and they don't want to go out because of COVID. So it could generate a lot of those smaller, because the state for the smaller scale is $75. So we were looking for half of that.
Go ahead.
So it's typical for boards and commissions to update their fees.
Yeah.
The planning board has updated its fees for A&R plans and subdivision plans over the years. I'm curious, Sherry, do you know when the last time was your commission?
We don't have fees for anything. So none of this is.
Okay,
So the
I think it's
update
time.
is the first time they'll
I
have
think it's time.
fees.
In 300 years, I think it's time we toss a $25 fee for a pool. I think it's fine.
Mark, any thoughts? You guys are
Yes.
developers. I'd love to
Yeah,
hear.
so it does send the wrong message, because a lot of times, companies coming to town want some certainty, right? You know, and everything's a special permit, and there's a lot of subjective stuff with Concom, and they have to spend this money before they even know if they can do what they want. So one of the first things I was thinking of is the property that we sold to Amazon at 4400 Computer Drive. It's an existing property. Amazon's using the existing permit. They're only improving it from a conservation standpoint. Yet the Conservation Commission had them kind of estimate wetlands and down on Smith Street. You know, really kind of unrelated, a long ways away from the building. But, you know, Amazon wanted to get along. And so I'm thinking, you have this site, 93 acres. Amazon doesn't know if, you know, it works for them, let's say. How much would it have cost them to do this? So I'm thinking if it's $1,000, it's 93 acres, it's a long rectangular lot. And I think, if I recall, wasn't it like a $1.25 a linear foot?
So we haven't quite gotten that far with that
Yeah.
discussion. It was either going to be a flat rate for that or the linear foot. I wanted them to decide what they wanted because I've seen that in other towns.
Mhm.
I don't know if I have a preference. I think I'd rather not have it done by linear feet because then everyone has to do the math and debate it. If it's just a flat fee, I think that's better.
Right, because sometimes there's a lot of linear feet.
Yeah.
And it's not even, like the Amazon example, it's not even really applicable to what they were doing yet. And then at 25 Research, there are wetlands everywhere around there, and that's a lot of land too, 60-something acres if I recall, but, you know, they're pretty much going to use, you know, the front part. Do they really have to, you know?
But you're also, if I understand correctly, you're
Yeah.
talking about a $1,000 fee for that, right?
So the one that Mark is referencing is actually called an ANRAD, and that is just when the commission looks at the whole wetland line and decides, yep, that's exactly where it is. Some towns say, well, if that wetland line's 200 feet long or 1,000 feet long, it's a different filing. So that's how they scaled that. The other one for $1,000 would just be, this is your project. Regardless of how many wetlands you have, this is your project. I do think that with the ANRADs, since we've delineated a lot of these bigger projects, having a flat fee is not a big deal. I mean, we've had no fees, so getting anything would be a bonus. So if that's perceived negatively, I'd be happy to remove that and change it to just a flat, just like the NOI.
Well, you know, if it's $1,000 to look and it's a big property, that's, you know, that's nothing.
Right.
You know, if it's 10 or 15,000 just to pay to play, then it is, you know, a negative thing. You know, the things that drive businesses away are special permits, anything subjective with Concom. You know, if we like you know, if it's a good project or bad. And I understand why they do it, but I've also been on the other side where it's not people that have the best interests of the town using their subjective, it's, you know, it's abutters, NIMBYs, competitors that use the same subjective special permit against you, and then having to pay up front. I mean, when I first started working in Westborough, we used to have to pull a building permit just to apply. You know, and that's been done away with, and that's a great thing. But and as far as pools and stuff, you know, if you're charging someone $37.50, how much paperwork is involved in someone's time? Now, it's good to record it, you know, but really, you know, does it cost you $50 in effort to collect $37.50? Yeah, probably. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would mention, so at our last couple of select board meetings, we've been talking about the building department fees, and we updated those. They hadn't been reviewed, and, well, we couldn't really remember when they'd been reviewed last. But the thought process was, you know, it's not to make money, it's to cover the costs of the service. And so I think it does make sense that there is, you know, this is a service and there is some cost to it, and right now it's being sort of spread across all the town's taxpayers, you know. So I think in your fee recommendation here with the linear foot, it does also mention up to a maximum. I think if it says 1,250. So I think I'm in agreement that, you know, costs need to be recouped, you know, because obviously somebody's paying for what's happening here. And this seems to be a reasonable jumping off point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there is a cap on that?
Yes, sorry, yes, there's not to exceed 2,500.
One of the things that when you're pulling a building permit, I mean, there is a lot of work there, and you kind of know that you're going to build something when you pull a permit. Whereas, you know, a lot of the wetland work, and believe me, Caruth Capital keeps Sherry very busy. But, you know, I guess having someone more committed and more pregnant when they're at the building permit stage than someone just kicking tires and seeing if they can build what they want here. And I know I represent the commercial end of things, and residential's, you know, as far as the town is concerned, is a totally different, you know, animal than a commercial property.
Right. I guess I could understand if, you know, paying whatever to have somebody tell you no is a little bit different than. So.
And you know, a no's not bad if you get it right away.
Yeah.
You know, it's the yes and the no's you want. The maybes are expensive and drive people away.
I'd also think when you're talking about a site like the Research Drive or Amazon or one of these projects, I'm assuming we're talking about, millions upon millions of dollars, and if, in the grand scheme of $1 million project, if someone says it's $1,000, it's like it's like our grant program, you're asking for 5,000 and we give you 500, it's kind of a wash in the project at some level, when you're talking about that size of a project, I think at some level. I'm not trying to discourage business, I want businesses in town, but on the back end, when the taxes just went up a significant amount last year, I'm sure every resident of this town looks at it and says, let Amazon, let Caruth, let whoever pay it, as long as it's not me. I think that's how the citizens would feel.
Well, I can also tell you, when the Westborough passed its, Conservation Commission, its own rules, maybe 7-10 years ago now,
Yeah.
it knocked off about 350,000 feet of development potential at Westborough Office Park.
Okay.
Because now with the mandatory setbacks, we couldn't build 1300 West Park Drive, and we couldn't build what we Caruth bought at 2300 West Park Drive. If you had site plan approval for a lot, you were
Yeah.
grandfathered. But if you had approval for a whole office park, like Westborough Office Park, you were not grandfathered.
Okay.
So 1300 was, set aside for a 150,000 foot office building. Now it's a expansion parking lot for the building next door.
Yeah, I didn't realize all that.
And
but
that's,
these are all
and I look at things per square foot. So let's say a reasonable tax base for a new building would be $2 a foot. That's $600,000 a year.
Yeah.
That the town, really thinking about what they did in a fully developed office park with roads in front of it and everything, and they took these lots off the rent roll, real estate tax roll.
We got you.
And now, you're looking for $1,000 fees for someone just kicking tires.
Yes. Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
I could
I
see
just,
I guess my two comments. One is I would recommend not doing it for the residential, because I think it's small dollars, and I think that can be absorbed. And I guess my question for Mark would, what if we were to cap it at something less than $1,250, what do you think that number should be?
if it's $1,000 for a big property, it's not. Some people who come in, I guess maybe whoever owns the land could pull it, but, when some companies come out with preliminary, interest, they want to be confidential. Sometimes we don't even know who's looking at things. A broker comes out and says, hey, we want a 100,000-foot building. When Olympus came out, we didn't know who was looking at first. And luckily that property had site plan approval. And so they knew they could build there even though.
If I could, so
Yeah.
trying to just bring the discussion back to the fees, to
Yeah.
focus on the fees. So if you are going to apply for a building permit, a site plan review, a subdivision approval, the fee isn't really the issue. It's the subjectivity that you're concerned about. You're going to deal with that anyway. Eventually, you're going to have a permit. Whether it costs something or not is not the issue of the approval. The permit fee is to offset the time of the department doing the work. So I understand the subjectivity. I'm more focused on that than the fee, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because I understand what you're talking about.
Mhm.
But we're talking about fees here. So we need to decide what's a reasonable fee.
If
That's
I-
all.
Can I ask? Oh,
Oh, no, go ahead.
oh, Mark, is the ANRAD more of a concern to you than the notice of intent? Because a notice of intent carries the weight of actually having a project, whereas an ANRAD is, hey, we're testing to see if we can do a project.
Mhm.
So if that is perceived as negative, then we don't have to pull a fee for that one necessarily,
You don't have a fee?
We don't
for
have to,
it?
we could remove that from our fee schedule if that was the perception, that if you're exploring whether this is, an option, then the commission will do it willingly. But if you have a project, then let's go this way. If
Yes.
that's the feedback I'm getting, I want to make sure I convey that.
Yes, that addresses the kicking of the tires versus
Yep.
actually proceeding, actually pulling a building permit, something concrete, rather than,
I get
I
that.
would.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then,
I
and
see
some
that.
kind of cap that's, reasonable? I mean, do you charge when the fire department comes to your house, or the police come to your house, or?
So for the notice of intent, so
Sometimes.
cap it. Yeah, because if you come forward with a project that has multiple categories, I mean, you could get high. I've never seen one, but, there's big developments where they want to move a river. Well, that tends to get pricey. So adding a cap to the notice of intent. Do you all have a recommendation of a cap for a notice of intent? So the highest fee I've seen from the state, and I've been here 8 years, I think I got close to $2,000, but that's about it. I don't think I've seen higher than that for the projects that I've seen in the last 8 years. Just to give you an idea of what that scale looks like. I've seen $75 and then up to that.
I don't think that's unreasonable for a large-scale project. When you're
Okay.
talking, a $70 million project and you have to pay a $2,000 fee. That's,
Well, it depends.
Okay.
If you could have a $70 million project that doesn't have any wetlands, it's zero.
Then you have, then you
You
don't,
can
you
have-
don't visit me at all. Yeah.
And then you can have some projects that, like we have 5 Technology Drive, that's 14 acres and only about 4 are dry, so there's a lot of wetlands there too.
yeah.
Not that they need to, look at all of it, you just know it's wetlands, if you're not gonna
Right.
work next to it.
Right.
If I, just quickly, then we want to wrap this, and I realize we're not the Conservation Committee or Land Trust, and we're the EDC, but I think part of it, in keeping with the vision of bringing businesses to town and attracting them, kind of going back to Westborough as a green community and preserving some of that and making sure that we do it the right way, I would fully support the fee schedule. I think that, I'm surprised there hasn't been one already, so,
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
yeah, that's a motion.
I'd second that.
Okay, any further discussion? There's a motion on the floor, and that is to support the fee schedule as presented, right? Any further discussion?
One comment from me, I agree with Marcus. The purpose of the EDC is to bring businesses to, which does in fact lower our tax rate.
Right.
And so it's not to discourage businesses, but to encourage businesses for growth and that potential. But I would like to know more, about the cap and what the cap would be. And then, as we were talking about the kicking of the tires, if that was eliminated, as far as.
Yeah, so on the ANRAD, where you wouldn't
Yep.
have a fee associated with that, right? Is that?
Yes, so the ANRAD has a fee, so I've suggested either 50% of the fee calculated by the state, which is back to that, whatever the state deems as their fee, you would submit 50% of that back to the town. And for an ANRAD, I'm sorry, I don't quite know off the top of my head what that would be, but I think it would be less than $500. Or $125 per square foot of wetland boundary that's being delineated. So not to exceed $1,250. So for ANRADs, I think I have 7 altogether in all my 900 filings. So it's not often we get them. So I'm more than happy to convey to the commission, we don't get a lot of these. Let's remove that because it's doesn't have the greatest perception of, hey, we're pro-business. The notice of intents, I do get quite a few of those, but you're already bringing a project forward. So I'm happy to go and do some research and find out what the max could be for a project from that and come back to you and give you an idea of what the state would have. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can give you a better idea of that, so that we could work on what would be an appropriate max, because
So-
I don't disagree with that comment.
From a timing perspective, when do you need to establish your fees, and when does that need
So
to
we're
be?
looking to have a discussion about it in May. May 10th we meet, and I've got now some good feedback, but I don't think we have a date that we're trying to really shoot for to finalize this.
All right, then the reason why I ask is because if you're looking for a letter of support from us, it sounds like, I don't want to be speaking for everybody, it sounds like you need to finalize the fees in order for us to really
Yeah.
determine if we can provide you with a letter of support.
So could I offer that go to the commission and then come back to you at a later meeting and just present?
So we meet once a
Okay.
month, so will
Sure.
that work into your timeframe for
I think so,
the
'cause
first
when's
Tuesday
your
of
next
next month?
meeting?
Our next meeting is June 6th, I want to say.
So, yeah.
June 7th, June 7th.
June 7th, so, yeah, that would be fine. I'd be able to discuss it with the commission. And
We
move
do have a
forward.
motion on the floor, though, that we have to vote on.
Another comment. So with the ANRADs, and it sounded like the fee wasn't so much the issue as that anonymity was important.
And perception, you know,
Okay,
pay to play. Even to look, you have to, you know,
got it,
write the check.
got it.
And it's not necessarily the size of the project, it's how much wetland you have.
Yeah.
It could be a very small project with a lot of wetland, or a huge project with no wetland.
Let me ask, do we want to take a formal vote? You know, if it's potentially defeated, so do we want to pass over?
I was going to withdraw my nomination, or,
Okay.
I mean, my recommendation to pass, till we get the
Yeah,
strict
perfect.
numbers. Yep,
Okay,
perfect.
okay. And if you have those fees completed before our meeting, if
Yep.
you could send them to
Yeah,
Zach and he could
absolutely.
circulate them to us before that, that would be
Yeah.
very helpful.
Perfect.
As much detail as you can provide. You heard some of the questions here today as far as
Yeah.
like number of, you know, maybe even taking a look. I'm sure you're going to have to do that as you go forward, but historically, how many?
That's what I thought I'd do. I'd go to the
Yeah.
last couple of ANRADs and notice of intents
Yep.
and give you an idea what that would have looked like.
Okay,
So you'd
fantastic.
have a
Great.
general idea.
All
Okay,
right.
perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
This was
very
really
much.
helpful.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Likewise.
All right, next on the agenda, we're running a little behind now, is the Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE program. Zach?
Yes, so at our last meeting, we heard from Rob Anderson from Mass Development, who spoke about a few of Mass Development's newer programs such as PACE and the Underutilized Property Program. After his presentation, there was some EDC discussion about PACE, and it seemed like there was some interest in pursuing a municipal opt-in for that program. As a reminder, PACE is a really a financing mechanism for clean energy improvements on large-scale projects that is implemented through a betterment assessment. We also have John Steinberg here today, and John, I haven't actually spoken with you in advance about this, but any kind of betterment assessment is going to truly be the work and touch the assessor's department and his office the most. And so, John, I think at least I'm sure the board as well would be, would welcome your thoughts on PACE.
Sure, thank you, Zach. John Steinberg, Chief Assessor. For those of you that don't understand the betterment process, like if a sewer or DPW project went through a street or something, and a betterment, they have a choice of whether to pay it up front or portion it over a period of time. When it gets apportioned, essentially we put it on the tax bills, and it becomes like a tax. If it goes unpaid, the property gets liened, okay? And so it gets billed with their tax bills. It becomes a burden to that. Relative to processing, my understanding of PACE is this is not a huge flow. However, there's some reporting requirements as to the payments, and it becomes a pass-through. They pay us, we have to then circulate the money back to the lender, essentially. This is we become a middleman. So it does introduce a process that needs a mechanism that currently doesn't exist relative to us receiving payment, the treasurer collector identifying that particular payment as paid, and then a check being issued to the company. So it's unclear. We'd have to do some homework relative to how any projects have been processed this way. I think there's only a few that have actually happened, while there's a number of towns that have adopted. But essentially, the process would have to be put in place because you don't actually have an invoice necessarily from this company like you would be paying a normal bill. And then if it goes unpaid, the good thing is the town, if the taxes are unpaid, the town still remains the priority lien. If they only pay a portion of it, it goes towards the taxes first, taxes and interest. So they do remain secondary relative to a lien holder on the property. So I guess the total impact at this point is considered somewhat minimal. However, the process would need to be created that doesn't currently exist.
Go ahead, Mark.
John, is this a voluntary betterment assessment?
Yeah, so essentially my understanding of PACE is that this is a financing mechanism for companies that want to do green projects. The state acts as a middleman to partner with certain lenders that have opted into this program to tie the lender with the company doing the project. So they underwrite it relative to some sort of financing mechanism. The only difference is, instead of them billing the project, that gets billed through the town as a betterment. So it gives a greater assurance against the real estate that this is going to get paid for the lender that has opted into this program to partner with the end community. So it's optional for the town whether or not they want to opt in. Once they opt in, it's really between the company and the lender and the coordination of the PACE program as to whether or not any of these projects go forward. And then we're notified that says, hey, there's a PACE project going forward, here's the lien amount, here's the process, and how many years it would be liened. And then we would be liening it with interest based upon what their interest rate is.
So one of the reasons a lender would want this is it basically creates a super or priority lien behind the town, but ahead of all lenders and
Correct.
and all.
Correct, yeah,
So-
it puts them ahead of any
Yeah.
other lien holder that may come up against them, as well as probably has some bankruptcy protections, would be my guess, relative to the real estate.
Yeah, if it's like real estate
Yeah.
taxes.
Once it's put
a
on
super
there.
lien, it's
Yeah.
over everybody,
Yeah,
everything.
once it's put on
Yeah.
there, that's true. Now, I don't know how unapportioned would be in the same way, because it's billed annually.
Ah.
So because it's apportioned over a period of time, I don't know how the entirety of the loan gets treated. As for those that have yet to be apportioned to the taxes, that I don't know. But that would really be the lender's issue more than ours.
And if anyone has any other questions about the program, I've become a little bit more familiar with it over the last couple weeks in response to the discussion last time. There are also, I think, on the Dropbox, there should be a slideshow that have been shared with me by Rob Dolan from Mass Development, who is sort of their point person on the PACE program. I think some of the advantages are that, with the caveat that, as John pointed out, there have been relatively few PACE projects that have actually gone forward through this program. But the advantages are that it creates a low-cost financing opportunity for large-scale clean energy improvements. I think it's something that we can add to our, economic development toolkit when we're talking to businesses about the ways in which the town can support them and, can help them improve, their business and their property. It's also pretty attractive from a cash flow standpoint to businesses and to applicants. So because it is a betterment assessment, the impact to their balance sheet is minimal or low. I think what it comes down to, at least for me, is what's the effort that's going to be required on behalf of the town and on behalf of John and his staff to actually implement something like this.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
And I don't know that there's an answer to be had today, actually, do we have any idea where the Green Communities stands on this? As far as the committee, there's a committee for, I'm probably saying it wrong, but.
You mean Sustainable Westborough?
Yes, sorry. Sustainable Westborough. I knew I was saying it wrong. I don't know if they have a take on this, or,
I haven't heard.
I don't know, I understand it's in front of them, but maybe Chrissy would know
Yeah.
better than me.
There was a meeting last night, but I wasn't able to attend, so I don't know if they made a formal vote or not. I know when they brought it up initially last month, there was interest in it. I think considering that it's voluntary and if the town can handle it, technically, I think it's positive to move forward. I think that was the only outstanding thing that this committee was waiting for last time, was to hear about the burden on staff and how they might be impacted, which it sounds like from my discussions and also what John just said, that we can certainly handle that internally.
If I could add one other thing, I think with rising interest rates, this may become more attractive over time, as well as other costs that are increasing. And so I think, as Zach said, it is a very marketable plus, frankly, even if it's not widely taken advantage of. It certainly lends a message to being supportive of, new growth and development and companies that want to go green.
so,
I can't imagine Sustainable Westborough being, right.
well, no, I wouldn't
Not for this,
imagine they'd be
right?
opposed to it, but it'd be curious to know how their take is, and who would actually vote to implement this? Would it be a select board decision?
Yeah, the select board is the body that has the authority to opt in.
So we discussed last time that the EDC should be the committee to bring it forward to the select board with asking for a letter of support from Sustainable Westborough, and then it would be on a select board agenda for vote.
I'll make a motion if we're ready.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the EDC recommend that the select board opt into the PACE program.
I second it.
All those in favor? Oh, I should have asked if there was any further discussion. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? It looked like it was unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's get that signed. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda, and I'm sorry we're running very late here, I did want to have a discussion on the EDC's position on tax classification. And John, do you want to come up and talk to us a little bit about your experience and your thoughts on this subject matter, if you don't mind?
Sure. John Steinberg, Chief Assessor. I would just say, I'll say one thing. For those that don't really know what we're talking about, I would urge them to go watch the tax classification hearing. This is something that's a decision of the select board that happens in the fall based upon what the projections are. I think maybe Christie has a comment about this more, but I think that prior to knowing the values, because it's a mathematical calculation, one of the issues is discussing or projecting this for a future year that has yet to be determined is speculative, because you don't know what the values are, and the values aren't set until the fall. And as I presented previously to the select board, right now it's easy for me to project residential values because I have sales. I haven't done my analysis, but I can sort of take a quick measure of where those sales are going. The commercial, industrial, and personal property, I don't know yet. We've just started getting the returns that are due March 1st for personal property, and income and expense reports are just coming in now. We've just sent out our second notice. So until I've had time to process those, it's really just speculation based upon my broader understanding of the markets. But we have fluctuation in the markets where we have commercial that is not doing the same as industrial, and where that all levels out combined with the new growth, without knowing the values, it's premature because it's really something that comes up more in the fall.
So what we're really talking about is a single versus dual tax rate here. Christy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what John's describing is typical of any year in terms of us not having firm numbers until we get closer to the fall. I think the EDC should definitely be having these discussions because I do think that the select board is going to have multiple meeting discussions about the tax rate. As everybody knows, we have a single tax rate. We haven't split the tax rate, but given the increase that we, excuse me, that we see coming, it certainly is something that people are talking about. So the board has already decided that they're going to have multiple meetings to start talking about this in the coming months in advance of that tax classification hearing in November. So I guess the point is that the EDC will keep you informed as to when those discussions are happening, and then it might be at a future meeting that you want to have a more detailed discussion and take a position.
Okay. Any other comments or anything? I think, I think that's correct. I think we should probably have a more detailed discussion in the coming months, but we want to be prepared to voice our opinion to the select board, the finance advisory committee, and whoever else wants to hear it.
Excuse me, I would also say the tax classification presentations are available on our website, and that lays out the options and definitions and what the pros and cons are. Literally, I have a slide that says pros and cons relative to the theory behind it and what the process is and how that shift would impact. And as I've said in the past, Westborough has 30%, just over 30% of non-residential commercial industrial personal property value, which is high. And so it being as high as it is, it already takes on a big burden of a big chunk of the portion, 30% of what the levy would be. So I would just urge people to, prior to the conversation, to watch the presentations on Westborough TV, you can get the date out of the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, and if you have questions, by all means, feel free to reach out and ask.
And I know Mark's going to be able to give us some good input on this subject matter because Caruth does own properties in various communities that have single versus dual tax rates. So we'll look forward to his input on the subject matter. And
I definitely have an opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, there's not just the single versus dual tax rate decided, there are also multiple exemptions that can be considered as well. So if you go in and see the full presentation, there's, I think, 3 or 4 decisions that are made every year when it comes to the tax
great.
rate.
all right, so I just encourage everybody to go on the assessor's website and watch those presentations.
And the other thing is, if you want to do research, take a look at, let's say Marlborough, for example, that has a dual tax rate, and look at the number of, and the amount of the TIFs they give out.
Right.
And you see that the corporations don't really have a dual tax rate. It's the small commercial businesses that end up paying the dual tax rate, and not the big landlords.
Yeah. All right, John, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So let's just move on real quick.
Before you go to the next item, Fred, Christie, and I have a meeting in like 2 minutes, so we're probably going to have to leave now.
Do you want to jump ahead to your report real quickly?
Okay, really quickly.
Yeah.
The planning board will approve 54 Oda Street this evening. That's the latest Amazon project. The public hearing for 25 to 29 Research Drive will open May 17th, unless the applicant asks for another continuation. And the Spectrum Health Systems public hearing is still open. Also, in the future, the town is going to be applying for a MassWorks grant. That's what our meeting is that we're going to be running off to for the Otis Street corridor. I know you're familiar with that project. We will probably come to this board to ask for a formal letter of support at the next meeting.
Great, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Let's see, so next on the agenda was the EDC fiscal year 23 goal setting. Zach.
Great. So, being mindful of everyone's time, I know we had a brief discussion about our goals at the last meeting. I tried to take a first pass at asserting a few goals for fiscal year 23. I think, we still have a fair amount of uncompleted, work from this year to continue working on. I think we discussed that a little bit last time, specifically continuing to implement the LRRP at an estimated rate of probably 2 to 3 projects per year. If the select board chooses to adopt the outdoor customer area policy, we've already done one LRP project, and then we're actually kicking off work on the online business directory project tomorrow. And we hope to have that completed by the end of July. And so that'll be 2 projects that we will have completed this year, and then we will start work shortly on the Shop Local loyalty program campaign and the minority and women-owned business support plan. That said, the LRP is 10 projects, and so I think there's still work to be continued there that we should have as a formal goal for this board. Additionally, continuing to revitalize our outreach, specifically with a focus on in-person outreach by resuming ambassador meetings, holding 2 to 3 events for businesses, developers, and real estate, I think should be a goal going forward for this board. I know it's something that several board members have expressed an interest in multiple times over the last year, and so I think we really need a little more time to continue working on that. The goals that I'm less sure about are numbers 3 and 4, and so I would invite the board to take a look at the master plan, specifically the master plan implementation matrix, which I believe is chapter 11 in that document, and look at some of the action items that have been outlined there and assigned to the EDC. I think, as I was thinking about goal setting for fiscal year 23, between the LRP and between the master plan, 2 both very large planning documents for us, I think we have plenty of ideas and plenty of options to pick from those documents. I know as well the planning board and Jim and his team are going to start a master plan implementation committee that will be discussing the town's approach towards implementing some of those projects. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get to this while Jim was here, but I would have loved to hear his thoughts on what projects the EDC might consider prioritizing sooner rather than later. The projects in the master plan have each been designated a priority, low, medium, high, or some are medium/high or low/medium. I looked only at some of the projects that are assigned a high priority, and I just picked out Economic Development Action Item 2-8, which is around creating walkable destination areas in some of our commercial corridors with a specific focus of a few that aren't immediately in the downtown area. So I think El Basha is mentioned, and that, I think it's called High Point Plaza right over there near Research Drive, Connector Road, and Technology Drive. The Arrive apartments and some of the shopping centers there were also called out as areas where we might work with property owners to create more destination areas that can draw customers into those plazas. So given the focus of the LRP on the downtown area specifically, I thought it would be a good goal to bring in for the EDC to focus a little bit more on some of the businesses that exist outside of our downtown. And then additionally, master plan initiatives ED 2-5 and 2-6 are around business recruitment and recruiting more active entertainment uses, health forward looking uses to our downtown area and to the town more broadly. I put both in one goal because they're both quite similar in that they're focused around business recruitment. And the only difference between the two initiatives, in my view, is the types of businesses, industries, and sectors that you're targeting with recruitment. I know in the past, this board has had a very active role in business recruitment, and I think we still maintain a pretty active role in that. But I think making progress and putting our focus towards specific industries and sectors, those that have been outlined in the master plan, could be a really good concrete goal for the next fiscal year. And I think, it would be great even to assign numbers behind some of these, like, to make it really tangible, actionable, and also, checkable. So to say, we want to recruit 1 health forward business or 2 health forward businesses and, 2 restaurants or entertainment use or something like that. This is just the first pass on, what I think some of the goals might be. And I think specifically, I would think that there is plenty of flexibility on which master plan goals we decide to pursue. But I think that in general, having, continuing some of the work for the 2 goals that we assigned for 2 of the 4 goals we assigned for fiscal year 22, implementing a couple master plan initiatives, and then as well exploring opportunities to expand the business assistance grant program, which, as we've seen today and as we've seen in many meetings, is incredibly popular, would be a good slate of goals for the EDC going forward. I would love to try and adopt final goals for fiscal year 23 at our next meeting. But like I said, I still think this is high level, and I'm not sure that the board actually has had the opportunity to discuss this enough to adopt at our next meeting. And so I would be comfortable pushing that out to the July meeting so that we can adopt these at the very beginning of fiscal year 23 and then move forward accordingly. What I would ask of the board, over the next few weeks before we meet in June is to take a look at the master plan, look at specifically at the initiatives that are assigned a high or medium priority value, and let me know which ones excite you and which ones are the ones that you think are going to be most important and most critical to our community over the next year, and also ones that you think that we really are positioned to execute on, so that for 3 and 4, I mean, I've picked what I think would be appropriate there, but obviously these aren't my goals, these are your goals, and so I think it's important for you to take a look and consider what's appropriate from the master plan for us to implement. And then in the meantime as well, I can talk to Jim and see where things stand with the planning board's implementation committee, and just to make sure that we're approaching this the right way and that they're not going to come to an EDC meeting in 2 months saying, why did you pick these 2 goals? We think you guys should be focusing on these other ones instead. And then for the business assistance grant program 1, that doesn't necessarily need to mean, obviously, we're not getting any new billboards anymore. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to increase the funding or the allocated funding from our billboard revenue, which is, I think, it's $60,000 now per year that we get from revenue from the billboards, and we're allowed to expend $40,000 per year. We could explore various options like increasing that to $50,000, increasing it to $45,000, or looking at other possible revenue streams for the EDC grant program. we can talk more at length about this next time. I know that we're running a little late on time here, but I think we can create a menu. We can look at what other communities are doing to fund their grant programs and to fund some of their other economic development initiatives, and consider whether or not that is viable for us and for the town of Westborough. I'll pause. Any questions, concerns, or I think I will upload this to the Dropbox and you guys can take a look at it, but I think the real work ahead is to, look at the master plan, think about what there excites you and what we might pursue going forward. And if there's something that's not there that you think is really important to the community, or something that, you would like to spearhead as a goal for the next year, that's on the table too. And just email me if you have any ideas or thoughts and opinions. But for now, questions, concerns?
Zach, it might be helpful if it's not too much work, just to cut those sections out of the master plan and throw them in the Dropbox so people have quick access to them, if that's all right.
Sure, we'll totally do that. I can, update this slide and just write what those are below the item.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, great.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to run to a meeting, but my only comment on the event was I thought the Great Hall was a great venue, and I think we should continue to use that next year, and thank everybody for their help. But that was a terrific event.
Thank you for your work on that and putting that together, Rod. Thank you very much. So that's next on the agenda, actually, the debrief of the EDC Year in Review Award Celebration.
Yeah, we can, because our numbers are dwindling,
Yeah.
we can delay that to the next meeting
Yeah,
if we would like. I also know, to folks who are on the working group, I circulated an email about finding a time to meet. It didn't seem like the time I proposed was going to work for people, but, we can revisit that and maybe try and meet as a group once before the next meeting, just to debrief on our own as well.
Okay. And then the Community Development Department report?
Great. So Jersey Mike's is a project underway in 9 West Plaza. They, I think, are going to be opening sometime later this spring or summer. There's a liquor store coming to West Meadow Plaza, which is the plaza that has Ocean State Job Lot as the anchor. Rockland Trust, which is a bank, is opening in Westborough Shopping Center. And then regarding some upcoming events, the Quarter 945 Chamber is having its annual meeting on Thursday, May 19th from 7:15 to 9:30 a.m. I know some members of this board are also members of the Chamber, but if you're not and you would like to attend, please let me know. There actually is a Westborough business. I won't name it because the information is not public yet, but they will be receiving an award from the Chamber, for their impact, on the community and on our economy at the annual meeting. So it might be a good opportunity for us to attend and, support a Westborough business and support our local chamber.
I'm sorry, what's the date on that?
It's Thursday, May 19th from 7:15 to 9:30 a.m. And then additionally, the chamber is having a ribbon cutting for Rockland Trust on Thursday, May 26th from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Again, it's always a great opportunity to welcome new businesses and to have, some presence from the EDC there, introduce ourselves, and so I think that could be a good opportunity. Outside of that, programmatically, I'd already stated that we're going to be kicking off work with our vendor for the online business directory this Wednesday. Obviously, we had a very successful year in review event last week. And then additionally, Christy and Jen Sullivan, the Board of Health Director, and I have been meeting to create a letter to send out to businesses informing them about changes due to the plastic bag bylaw amendment that was approved at town meeting. And we are also hoping to plan an information session in the next couple weeks for businesses to attend if they have any questions or concerns about the plastic bag reduction bylaw amendment. We plan to have that in person, but we're also hoping to live stream that, either on the EDC's website or, put a video of it up on the town's website or something like that. So that will be one opportunity for in-person outreach in the next couple weeks.
That's great.
Great, thank you. Any other business? No? All right, then, does anyone want to make a motion to?
I'll to make a motion to adjourn, please.
All right,
I'll second.
all those in favor? Great, thank you very much, everybody. Sorry it was a long meeting, but we got a lot accomplished.
With the grants, we need to go.